The first thing I noticed when Rina walked through our loft door wasn't her guilty smile or the way she avoided eye contact. It was the diamond ring catching the afternoon light streaming through our floor-to-ceiling windows. A rock so big it could have been seen from space, sitting pretty on her right hand like a trophy she'd just won at the Cheating Wives Championship. "We need to talk," she said, setting down her designer overnight bag, the one I'd bought her for Christmas 2 years ago when I still believed her business trips were actually about business. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I didn't look up from my laptop where I'd been reviewing audit reports for Morrison & Associates. Numbers don't lie, unlike wives apparently. "No, we don't," I said, keeping my voice level. That was the moment I stopped being her husband and started being her reckoning. Rina Cole Turner, though apparently she'd been using just Cole lately, stood there in our open-plan living room like she owned the place. Technically, she didn't. The lease was in my name, the furniture was bought with my money, and the mortgage on this converted warehouse loft in downtown Hartford was something I qualified for with my financial auditor salary, not her part-time hospitality management gig. "Miles, please." She twisted that ring around her finger. "This isn't how I wanted you to find out." "Find out what? That you've been screwing around during your girls' trips to Boston? That you've been showering before you come home because you smell like another man's cologne? Or that you've been getting engaged to someone else while still married to me?" Her face went pale beneath her fresh salon tan. "How did you—" "Mrs. Larkin from the Fairmont mentioned seeing you there. Frequently. With a tall, flashy guy who wasn't your husband." I closed my laptop and finally looked at her. "She's been my client for 3 years, Rina. She knows what I look like." The silence stretched between us like a tightrope about to snap. Our loft, with its exposed brick walls and industrial fixtures, suddenly felt like a crime scene waiting to happen. The afternoon sun streaming through the windows highlighted every lie she'd told, every betrayal she'd committed in this space we'd shared for 4 years. "His name is Eli," she said finally. "Eliot Drake. He's in real estate development and he—" "I don't care if he's the Pope," I interrupted. "What I care about is that you've been planning your exit strategy while still cashing my checks and sleeping in my bed." She had the nerve to look hurt. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. How was it supposed to happen? Were you planning to invite me to the wedding? Rina's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and smiled, before typing back a response. The audacity was breathtaking. "That him?" I asked. "He's picking me up for dinner. We're going to tell his parents about the engagement." I stood up slowly, walked to our kitchen island, and poured myself 3 fingers of the Jameson she'd given me for my birthday. The irony wasn't lost on me. She'd bought me Irish whiskey while planning to run off with another man. "You know what the funny thing is?" I took a sip and savored the burn. "I've been auditing books for 15 years. I can spot irregularities, discrepancies, and fraud from a mile away, but I missed the biggest lie happening right under my own roof." "Miles, I never meant for it to—" "Save it." I held up my hand. "You want to be with Eli? You want to start fresh? Congratulations. But you're not doing it from my house, on my dime, with my name." Her phone buzzed again. This time she ignored it. "What does that mean?" "It means you should probably call your fiancé and tell him to pick you up from your parents' house instead, because that's where you'll be living from now on. You can't just kick me out. I have rights." I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen. "Actually, according to Connecticut state law and the lease agreement you never signed, I can give you 30 days notice to vacate. But I'm feeling generous, so I'm giving you until tomorrow morning." The color drained from her face completely now. "Tomorrow? Miles, be reasonable." "Reasonable?" I laughed, and it came out harsher than I intended. "You want to talk about reasonable? Was it reasonable to plan a secret engagement while married to someone else?" Was it reasonable to use my credit cards to buy lingerie for your boyfriend? Was it reasonable to lie to my face for 6 months while you played house with another man? Her phone rang this time. The screen showed Eli with a photo of a guy who looked like he'd stepped out of a men's fashion magazine, all jawline and perfect hair, the kind of man who probably drove a BMW and called everyone buddy. She answered on the third ring. "Hey, baby." Her voice completely changed, becoming softer, more feminine. "I'm just finishing up here. Can you pick me up at—" She paused, looking at me. "Actually, can you pick me up at my parents' house instead? Something came up." I could hear his voice through the phone, confused and slightly irritated. She walked toward our bedroom, lowering her voice, but I caught fragments. Just a small hiccup. "Nothing we can't handle. Tell you everything when I see you." While she was gone, I called my friend Sam from work. Sam Rodriguez had been my cube neighbor for 5 years and owed me for covering his audit reports when his wife had their second kid. "Sam, I need a favor. Know any moving companies that work weekends?" "Jesus, Miles, what happened?" "Let's just say Rina's decided to pursue other opportunities." "Shit, man." "Yeah, my brother-in-law runs a crew. They're expensive but discreet." "You want them to pack or just move?" "Just move. Everything's already packed." I looked around our loft at all of Rina's stuff scattered everywhere like evidence of a life I'd been foolish enough to believe was real. "And Sam? I need them tomorrow morning. Early." When Rina came back from the bedroom, she was carrying a small suitcase. "Eli's picking me up in 20 minutes. We're going to stay at his place tonight and figure this out tomorrow." "Nothing to figure out. You made your choice." She stopped at the door and turned back to me. For a moment, I saw something that might have been regret in her eyes. "Miles, enjoy your new life," I said, raising my whiskey glass in a mock toast. "I hope it's everything you dreamed of." After she left, I sat in the sudden quiet of our loft and planned her eviction with the same methodical precision I used to balance corporate books. By tomorrow evening, Rina Cole would discover that starting over isn't quite as simple as she thought. Saturday morning came early, and so did Rodriguez Moving and Storage. Sam's brother-in-law, Tony, showed up at 7 a.m. with 2 guys and a truck big enough to haul away 4 years of lies. "You want everything that's hers?" Tony asked, surveying our loft like a general planning a campaign. "Everything. Clothes, shoes, books, that expensive coffee machine she insisted we needed, the throw pillows that cost more than my car payment, all of it." "What about stuff you bought together?" I'd thought about this all night. If she picked it out, it goes. If she used it daily, it goes. If looking at it reminds me that my wife was planning her escape while I was planning our future, it definitely goes. The crew worked with military efficiency. Rina's walk-in closet got emptied first, designer clothes, handbags, and enough shoes to stock a small boutique. Then her bathroom supplies, her books, her laptop, and that ridiculous collection of scented candles that made our place smell like a spa. While they worked, I called Rina's parents. "Mrs. Cole? It's Miles. I'm sending some of Rina's belongings over this morning. She'll explain everything when she sees you." "Miles, dear, what's going on?" Rina called last night saying she was staying with a friend, and she sounded upset. Mrs. Cole had always liked me, which made this conversation particularly satisfying. "I'm afraid you'll need to ask Rina about that, but you might want to clear some space on your front porch. There's quite a bit." By 10 a.m., the truck was loaded. I rode shotgun to the Cole family estate in West Hartford, where old money lived in old houses with old secrets. The Cole family had been in Connecticut since before the Revolutionary War, which they never let anyone forget. "Nice neighborhood," Tony commented as we pulled up to the circular driveway. "This place has got to be worth $2 million easy." "At least," I agreed. "Pull around to the front, right by the main entrance." We unloaded everything onto the front porch with the precision of a military operation. Boxes labeled Rina's clothes, Rina's shoes, Rina's books, and my personal favorite, Rina's secrets. I'd found some interesting items while packing. Receipts from restaurants I'd never been to, ticket stubs from shows she'd supposedly attended with girlfriends, and a spare phone charger that didn't fit any device she owned. Mrs. Cole appeared at the front door just as we were finishing. She was dressed for her Saturday garden club meeting, all pearls and pressed slacks. Miles, what is the meaning of this? Rina decided to get engaged yesterday. I decided she should celebrate from her childhood home. Engaged? But she's married to you. That's what I thought too. Apparently we were both mistaken. I handed her an envelope containing copies of our lease agreement, bank statements showing Rina's financial dependence, and a printed email from Mrs. Larkin at the Fairmont, confirming Rina's frequent visits with her gentleman friend. I've documented everything for the divorce proceedings. Rina can collect her belongings any time. I've changed the locks. Mrs. Cole's face went through several expressions: confusion, embarrassment, and finally, anger. That foolish girl. After everything we've taught her about reputation and family honor. I'm sure she'll explain her reasoning when she arrives, which should be soon, since her fiancé is probably wondering why his bride-to-be doesn't have a permanent address. As we drove away, I felt lighter than I had in months. Phase 1 was complete, but the real satisfaction would come when Rina showed up at her parents' house with Eli, expecting to make grand announcements about their future together, only to find her entire life reduced to boxes on a porch. My phone rang as we headed back downtown. Sam. How'd it go? Like Christmas morning. How's your research coming? Oh, you're going to love this. Eliot Drake, 38, works for Pinnacle Development Group, divorced twice, currently being sued by his second ex-wife for unpaid alimony. Drives a leased BMW, lives in a one-bedroom apartment in West End, and according to his LinkedIn, specializes in luxury residential acquisitions. Meaning? He flips houses for rich people. And get this, his current project is a condo development that's 3 months behind schedule and hemorrhaging money. I smiled. So he's broke. Broker than a street musician. Word is, he's been looking for investors, which means he's probably been looking for someone with money to marry. Too bad he picked the wrong wife. When I got back to the loft, I opened all the windows and let the November air blow through. Without Rina's perfume and scented candles, the place smelled clean for the first time in months. I poured myself a coffee, black the way I liked it before Rina convinced me to add cream and sugar, and waited for the fireworks to begin. They started at 2:17 p.m. My phone exploded with texts from Rina. What the hell did you do? My parents are furious. Eli is asking questions I can't answer. Call me back right now. I deleted them all without responding. At 3:45 p.m., she called. I let it go to voicemail. Miles, this is insane. You can't just throw my life away because you're upset. I have nowhere to go. Eli's apartment is too small for both of us, and my parents are acting like I've committed a crime. Call me back so we can work this out like adults. I saved the voicemail. Her admission that Eli's place was too small would be useful later. At 6:30 p.m., Eli called from Rina's phone. I answered this time. Listen, buddy, he said, his voice trying to sound reasonable but coming across as condescending. I think we got off on the wrong foot here. Rina and I never meant for things to happen this way. Which part? The secret engagement or the fact that she's still married? Look, emotions are running high, but we're all adults here. Rina made a mistake not telling me about her situation, but that doesn't mean we can't handle this civilly. You're right, I said. It's very civil. I've provided detailed financial records for the divorce. I've returned all her belongings to her family home, and I've saved everyone the awkwardness of her living a double life. What's more civil than that? She needs her things. She needs a place to stay while we figure this out. She has her things. They're at her parents' house. And she has a place to stay, the same house where she lived for 22 years before she moved in with me. That's not a long-term solution. Neither was marrying someone while planning to leave them for another man, but that didn't stop her. The line went quiet for a moment. Then Eli's voice came back, harder now. "You're being unreasonable. Rina deserves better than this." "You're absolutely right. She deserves exactly what she's getting." I hung up and blocked both their numbers. Sunday morning brought a knock at my door. Through the security camera, I could see Rina standing in the hallway, looking like she hadn't slept. I buzzed her up. "We need to talk," she said when I opened the door. "No, we really don't." She pushed past me into the loft. It looked different without her stuff. Cleaner, more spacious, more like the place I'd imagined when I first signed the lease. This is my home too. Was, past tense. Miles, please. I know I handled this badly, but we can work something out. I don't have to move in with Eli right away. We can separate gradually, do this the right way. The right way would have been telling me you wanted a divorce before getting engaged to someone else. She sat down on the couch, one of the few pieces of furniture that had survived the purge. I was scared. I didn't know how you'd react. How I'd react to honesty. Probably better than I'm reacting to betrayal. "I never meant to hurt you." I sat down across from her, studying her face. Even after everything, she was still beautiful, still charming, still absolutely convinced that she could talk her way out of any situation. "What did you think would happen, Rina? Did you think I'd just quietly accept being your backup plan while you auditioned for a better life?" "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like? Explain it to me." She twisted that engagement ring again. "Eli and I met at a hospitality conference in Boston 6 months ago. We started talking and he was so different from—" She stopped herself. "Different from me?" "More ambitious, more exciting. He has plans, dreams about building something bigger. And I don't? You're content, Miles. You like your routine, your job, your quiet life. There's nothing wrong with that, but I wanted more." I leaned back and smiled. "You wanted more. Got it. So you decided to keep me around as financial security while you test drove your upgrade. That's not fair." "Fair?" I stood up. "You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been having this conversation 6 months ago. Fair would have been not using my credit cards to buy gifts for your boyfriend. Fair would have been not lying to my face every single day while you planned your escape." Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and frowned. "Eli wondering where you are." "He's having second thoughts about the engagement." "Really? Can't imagine why. He says he needs time to process everything, that he didn't realize how complicated this would be." I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Turns out your Prince Charming isn't quite as charming when he realizes his princess comes with baggage. Don't be cruel. I'm not being cruel, Rina. I'm being realistic. You gambled on a better life and lost. That's not cruelty. That's consequences. She started crying then, real tears that smudged her makeup and made her look younger, more vulnerable. For a moment, I remembered why I'd fallen in love with her in the first place. Then I remembered the ring on her finger and the lies she'd told to get it. "I'll make this simple," I said. "You can stay at your parents' house while we file for divorce. I'll be fair about the division of assets, even though legally I don't have to be. But you don't get to come back here, and you don't get to pretend this is just a misunderstanding that we can fix." "And if I refuse?" "Then I'll file for divorce on grounds of adultery and make sure everyone in your professional network knows exactly why our marriage ended. Your choice." She left without another word. As the door closed behind her, I realized I'd been holding my breath for months, waiting for this moment when I could finally exhale. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. Monday morning at Morrison & Associates felt different. Maybe it was because I'd slept better than I had in months, or maybe it was because I finally had a purpose beyond auditing other people's books. Sam appeared at my cubicle with coffee and gossip. "So, How's the newly single life treating you? Like a vacation from a job I never wanted in the first place. Harsh. I like it. He sat down and lowered his voice. I did some more digging on your boy Eli. Want the good news or the bad news? Give me the good news first. The good news is he's not a complete fraud. He really does work for Pinnacle Development, and he really has flipped some high-end properties. And the bad news? The bad news is he's leveraged up to his eyeballs on a condo project that's about to tank. He owes money to contractors, investors, and the IRS. Word around town is he's got maybe 6 weeks before the whole thing collapses. I sipped my coffee and considered this information. So he was probably counting on Rina's financial stability. Or yours. Through her. A nice, stable husband with a good job and clean credit could co-sign some loans, maybe invest in his projects. Too bad he's going to have to find another Mark. Speaking of which, Sam pulled out his phone. You might want to see this. He showed me Rina's Facebook page. She'd posted a photo from yesterday, her and Eli at some upscale restaurant, both of them smiling like nothing had happened. The caption read, "Sometimes life takes unexpected turns, but love always finds a way. Dak are new beginnings, dak blessed, dak true love." 43 likes and counting, Sam said, including her mother. I scrolled through the comments. Most were congratulations from people who clearly didn't know she was still married, but a few were more interesting. Wait, what about Miles? From her cousin Jennifer. Didn't you just post anniversary photos with your husband like 2 months ago? From someone named Sarah. Girl, you move fast. From Viv, her supposed best friend. She's really going to pretend this is all normal? Looks like it. What are you going to do? I handed him back his phone. Nothing. Yet. The truth was, I had a plan. But it required patience and perfect timing. Rina thought she could control the narrative, spin this into some romantic story about finding her soulmate. She was about to learn that stories have a way of taking on a life of their own. That evening, I drove to Murphy's Pub, a blue-collar bar 3 blocks from our loft where I'd been a regular for years. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business, and gossip spread faster than wildfire. "Miles!" Danny the bartender called out when I walked in. "Haven't seen you in a while. Where's the missus?" Perfect opening. "That's actually a funny story," I said, settling onto my usual bar stool. "Turns out she's been getting engaged to other people." The conversations around me gradually died down as my story spread through the bar like ripples in a pond. I didn't embellish or exaggerate. I just told the truth. How I'd discovered the affair, how I'd found out about the engagement, how I'd packed up her stuff and sent her back to Mommy and Daddy. "Jesus," said Frank, a construction worker who'd been coming to Murphy's longer than I'd been alive. "She really played you like that?" For 6 months. Had me thinking her business trips were actually business. "What kind of business?" asked Maria, the day shift nurse who stopped in for drinks after her shift. "Hospitality management. Ironic, right? She was definitely managing someone's hospitality." The laughter that followed wasn't mean-spirited, but it wasn't kind either. It was the laughter of people who'd seen this story before and knew how it ended. "So, what's she doing now?" Danny asked, refilling my beer. "Living with her parents and trying to convince her boyfriend that being engaged to a married woman isn't a red flag." "Her parents know?" "Oh, they know. I delivered all her belongings to their front porch yesterday morning, right before she showed up with Prince Charming to make her big announcement." More laughter. "Someone bought me a shot." The story got retold to new arrivals with additional details each time. By closing time, half of downtown Hartford would know that Rina Cole Turner had been caught cheating, kicked out, and sent home to her parents like a teenager who'd missed curfew. Tuesday brought the first wave of consequences. Mrs. Larkin from the Fairmont called my office. "Miles, dear, I hope you don't mind me calling, but I heard through the grapevine that you and your wife are having some difficulties." That's one way to put it. Well, I thought you should know that Mr. Drake, the gentleman your wife has been seeing, he's been asking about extended stay rates. Apparently his living situation has become complicated. Complicated how? It seems his apartment lease is up for renewal, and he's having trouble with the deposit. He was hoping to negotiate a corporate rate for a long-term stay here at the hotel. I smiled. And what did you tell him? I told him we'd need a credit check and 3 months' rent in advance. He said he'd get back to me. I'm sure he will. Miles, I've been in this business for 30 years. Mira's finished. The boutique is done for, the investors are furious, and her reputation is shot. Your wife may have picked a handsome one, but she didn't pick a wealthy one. Wednesday brought even better news. Sam appeared at my cubicle with a shit-eating grin and his laptop. Remember how I said Eli was leveraged up to his eyeballs? Yeah. Well, it gets better. I have a friend who works for the city planning department. Guess whose condo project just got hit with a stop work order? No way. Apparently, they've been cutting corners on inspections, and someone filed a complaint. The whole site is shut down pending a full investigation. I leaned back in my chair and laughed. How long will that take? Months. Maybe longer if they find serious violations. And here's the best part. Eli's investors are already asking for their money back. How do you know all this? Because one of his investors is married to my wife's sister. Small world, right? Anyway, word is he's got about 2 weeks before the whole thing falls apart. And he thought marrying Rina would solve his problems. Joke's on him. She doesn't have any money either. That evening, I got a call from an unknown number. When I answered, a man's voice I didn't recognize spoke. Is this Miles Turner? Depends who's asking. This is Richard Cole, Rina's father. I think we need to talk. Richard Cole was old-school Connecticut money, the kind of man who wore bow ties unironically and belonged to clubs that didn't allow women or minorities. I'd met him exactly 3 times in 4 years of marriage, and he'd made it clear each time that he considered me beneath his daughter's social standing. What can I do for you, Mr. Cole? You can explain to me why my daughter is living in our guest room and crying herself to sleep every night. I'd suggest asking her, but I suspect you already have. She told me some ridiculous story about falling in love with another man and getting engaged. She seems to think this is all perfectly normal behavior. And what do you think? There was a long pause. I think my daughter has lost her mind, and I think you're the only one who can help her find it again. I'm not sure I understand. This Drake fellow, he's not what she thinks he is. My sources tell me he's in serious financial trouble. He's using my daughter to solve his problems. Your sources? I didn't build a successful business by ignoring due diligence, Mr. Turner. I had him investigated the moment Rina brought him home. I almost laughed. And what did you find? 2 failed marriages, multiple lawsuits, and enough debt to sink a small country. The man is a con artist, and my daughter is his mark. So why are you calling me? Because despite what she's done to you, I know you care about her, and because I think you're the only one who can make her see reason. I considered this. Richard Cole asking for my help was like the Pope asking for dating advice. Unprecedented and slightly surreal. What exactly are you asking me to do? Talk to her. Make her understand that this Drake fellow isn't her Prince Charming. He's her biggest mistake. Mr. Cole, with all due respect, your daughter made her choice. She chose to lie to me, cheat on me, and humiliate me. Why would I help her now? Because you're a better man than she deserves, and because if you don't, she's going to destroy her life completely. After I hung up, I sat in my loft and thought about Richard Cole's offer. The irony was perfect. The man who'd spent 4 years looking down on me was now begging for my help to save his daughter from her own stupidity. But I wasn't interested in saving Rina. I was interested in something else entirely. Justice. Thursday morning brought a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Meet me at Starbucks on Main Street at noon. Eli. I showed up 15 minutes late just to establish the dynamic. Eli was already there, looking less polished than in his photos. His perfect hair was slightly messed up, his expensive shirt was wrinkled, and he had the hollow-eyed look of a man who hadn't been sleeping well. "Thanks for coming," he said when I sat down across from him. I was curious to meet the man who thought he could steal another guy's wife without consequences. "Look, I know this situation is messed up. That's one word for it. But we need to find a way to work this out. Rina's a mess, you're pissed off, and I'm caught in the middle of something I never signed up for." I sipped my coffee and studied him. Up close, Eliot Drake looked like exactly what he was, a smooth-talking salesman who'd gotten in over his head. "What exactly did you sign up for?" "A relationship with a beautiful, intelligent woman who told me she was separated and getting divorced." "And you believed her?" "Why wouldn't I? She had her own place, her own life, her own income. She never acted like a married woman. Because she was living with me, using my address and spending my money." Eli's face flushed. "She told me she was staying with a friend temporarily while the divorce was finalized." "And you never thought to ask questions? Never wondered why she always wanted to meet at hotels? Never found it strange that she didn't have any photos of her apartment or her friends?" "I trusted her." "You trusted a liar. That's on you." He leaned forward, his voice dropping. "Look, I get it. You're angry. You have every right to be. But taking it out on Rina isn't going to solve anything. I'm not taking anything out on anyone. I'm just not enabling her lies anymore. She needs stability right now. She needs support. Then you provide it. I can't. My situation is complicated right now." I almost smiled. "Complicated how?" "Business stuff, cash flow issues, nothing permanent, but I can't take on additional responsibilities right now." "Additional responsibilities like a fiancé?" "Like anyone who needs financial support." There it was, the truth, finally. Eli hadn't fallen in love with Rina. He'd fallen in love with what he thought she could provide. A stable home, a reliable income, maybe a husband with good credit who could co-sign loans. "So, what do you want from me?" "I want you to take her back." I laughed out loud. "Are you serious?" "Just temporarily, until I get my business sorted out. Then you can get divorced properly, and she can move in with me." "Let me see if I understand this correctly. You want me to provide housing and financial support for your fiancé while you figure out your life? It would be better for everyone. Everyone, except me. You'd be helping her transition, doing the right thing." I stood up. "The right thing?" "Eli, the right thing would have been not screwing a married woman. The right thing would have been encouraging her to get divorced before getting engaged. The right thing would have been being honest about your own situation instead of promising her a life you can't provide." "Where are you going?" "Back to work. Some of us have jobs that actually pay the bills." "This isn't over." I turned back to him. "Yeah, it is. You just don't know it yet." That afternoon, I called Mrs. Larkin at the Fairmont. "Miles, dear, how are you holding up?" "Better every day. Listen, I have a favor to ask." "Of course." "Eliot Drake is going to call you again about extended stay rates. When he does, I want you to quote him our corporate rate." "Our corporate rate?" "Morrison and Associates has a standing agreement with your hotel for client accommodations. I want you to tell him we can offer him a room at the corporate rate, but he'll need to provide a credit card for incidentals and a deposit for potential damages." "How much should I quote him?" $5,000 for the deposit, $2,000 for the first month." "Miles, that's 3 times our normal rate." "I know, but I have a feeling Mr. Drake won't be able to afford it, and I want that on record." "You're a devious man, Miles Turner." "I'm a thorough man, Mrs. Larkin. There's a difference." Friday brought the call I'd been waiting for. Sam appeared at my cubicle with his phone in his hand and a huge grin on his face. "It's happening. Eli's project just got shut down completely. The city found multiple code violations, unpaid contractor fees, and evidence of permit fraud. Permit fraud? He's been forging inspection signatures and backdating approvals. The DA's office is opening an investigation. I leaned back in my chair. Criminal charges? Possibly. At minimum, he's looking at massive fines and civil lawsuits. His investors are already filing complaints, and his contractors are putting liens on the property. What about his personal assets? What personal assets? The BMW is leased, the apartment is rented, and his bank accounts are about to be frozen pending the investigation. So he's broke. Broker, then broke. He's about to be unemployed and possibly facing criminal charges. That evening, I got a call from Rina. She was crying before I even said hello. Miles, please, I need help. What kind of help? Eli's in trouble. His business is falling apart and he can't afford his apartment anymore. We need somewhere to stay while he sorts everything out. I can't abandon him now. He needs me. And what do you need, Rina? I need my husband to help me through the biggest crisis of my life. The audacity was breathtaking. Your husband? The same husband you cheated on, lied to, and publicly humiliated? I know I made mistakes. Mistakes? Rina, you didn't make mistakes. You made choices. You chose to cheat. You chose to lie. You chose to get engaged to another man while married to me. Those weren't accidents. They were decisions. Please, I have nowhere else to go. You have your parents' house. I can't bring Eli there. My father hates him. Smart man, your father. Miles, I'm begging you. And I'm saying no. You wanted a new life with Eli? You got it. Figure it out. I hung up and blocked her number again. Saturday morning, I was drinking coffee and reading the newspaper when someone started pounding on my door. Through the security camera, I could see Eli, and he looked furious. I buzzed him up, curious to see how desperate he'd become. You snake, he said the moment I opened the door. You did this. Did what? You sabotaged my project. You called the city, didn't you? I stepped aside to let him in, mainly because I wanted to see him lose his composure in my living room. Eli, I'm a financial auditor, not a building inspector. I wouldn't know a code violation if it bit me on the ass. Bullshit. This is too convenient. My project gets shut down the same week Rina leaves you? Maybe the universe has a sense of irony. I know it was you. Prove it. He started pacing around my loft like a caged animal. You think you're so smart, don't you? Sitting up here in your fancy apartment looking down on everyone else? It's not that fancy, and I'm not looking down on anyone. I'm just not looking up to you. You're destroying Rina's life out of spite. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just not fixing problems I didn't create. She loves me. She loves the idea of you. There's a difference. And what's that supposed to mean? I sat down on my couch and gestured for him to do the same. He remained standing, which was fine by me. It made him look more agitated. It means she fell in love with a successful real estate developer who promised her a glamorous life. But that person doesn't exist, does he? You're just a con artist who got caught. I'm not a con artist. No? Then explain the permit fraud. Explain the forged inspection signatures. Explain the investors who are about to sue you for everything you don't have. His face went pale. How do you know about that? Small town, Eli. People talk. You've been investigating me. I've been listening. There's a difference. He sat down finally, his anger deflating into something that looked like despair. Look, I admit I made some mistakes with the project, cut some corners, maybe bent a few rules, but that doesn't make me a criminal. The DA might disagree. The DA? Oh, you didn't know? They're opening a criminal investigation. Something about fraud and misappropriation of investor funds. Eli put his head in his hands. Jesus Christ. So, here's my question. When exactly were you planning to tell Rina that her Prince Charming is about to be indicted? It's not going to come to that. Based on what? Your track record of good decisions? I can fix this. How? You're broke, unemployed, and about to be charged with fraud. What exactly are you going to fix it with? Rina has connections. Her family has money. And there it was. The real reason he'd pursued a married woman. The real reason he'd convinced her to leave me. He thought he was marrying into money. Eli, let me explain something about the Cole family. They have old money, which means they're very careful about who they associate with. Richard Cole already had you investigated, and he knows exactly what you are. What do you mean? I mean, he knows about your debts, your failed marriages, and your business problems. He's not going to help you, and he's sure as hell not going to let you marry his daughter. Rina doesn't need their permission. No, but she needs their money, and they're not giving it to her as long as she's with you. Eli stood up abruptly. You're enjoying this, aren't you? More than I probably should. You're a vindictive bastard. I'm a realistic bastard. There's a difference. This isn't over. Yeah, it is. You just haven't accepted it yet. After he left, I called Sam. How do you feel about a little weekend surveillance? What kind of surveillance? The kind where we follow a desperate man and watch him make increasingly bad decisions. I'm in. Sunday was going to be very interesting. Sunday morning started with a phone call from Mrs. Cole. She sounded tired and older than her 62 years. Miles, I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to ask you something. What's on your mind, Mrs. Cole? This Drake fellow, how long has Rina been seeing him? About 6 months, as far as I can tell. And you're certain about the affair? I have hotel records, credit card statements, and witness testimony. Why do you ask? Because he's been calling our house all weekend asking to speak with Rina. When I tell him she's not available, he starts asking about our family finances, about investments and business opportunities. I smiled grimly. He's prospecting. Excuse me? He's trying to figure out if your family can solve his financial problems. How much has Rina told you about his situation? She says he's a successful developer who's having temporary cash flow issues. Mrs. Cole, Eli Drake is facing criminal fraud charges. His business is being investigated by the DA's office, and his investors are suing him for misappropriation of funds. He's not having cash flow issues. He's having reality issues. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for nearly a minute. My God, she finally said. She has no idea, does she? I don't think so, and I don't think he's planning to tell her. What should we do? That depends. Do you want to save your daughter from making the biggest mistake of her life? Or do you want to let her learn the hard way? Of course we want to save her, but she won't listen to us. She thinks we're just being snobs. Then you need to make her listen. How? Leave that to me. Just make sure she's home this afternoon around 3 o'clock. Miles, what are you planning? I'm planning to give your daughter the same gift she gave me, the truth. After I hung up, I called Sam. Remember that surveillance we talked about? Change of plans. We're going to stage an intervention. What kind of intervention? The kind that involves public humiliation and permanent consequences. My favorite kind. At 2:30 p.m., Sam and I drove to the Cole family estate. I'd called ahead to make sure both of Rina's parents would be home, and I'd asked them to gather in their formal living room, the one with the expensive furniture and family portraits that reminded everyone of their social standing. Rina was waiting when we arrived, looking confused and slightly annoyed. She was wearing the same clothes she'd had on 3 days earlier, which told me she hadn't been home to collect more belongings. Miles, what's going on? We're going to have that conversation you wanted, the one where we work everything out like adults. Here? In front of my parents? They're stakeholders in this situation. They deserve to know what's happening. Richard Cole gestured for everyone to sit down. The formal living room felt like a courtroom, which was perfect for what I had planned. Rina, I began, I want you to tell your parents about Eli's business. What about it? Tell them about his condo development project. He's building luxury condominiums in West Hartford. It's a very successful venture. Was, past tense. The project was shut down last week by the city. Temporarily shut down. He's working with the inspectors to resolve some minor issues. Sam pulled out his laptop and set it on the coffee table. These are public records from the city planning department. The project wasn't shut down for minor issues. It was shut down for permit fraud, code violations, and safety concerns. That's not true. It's all documented, I said. Forged inspection signatures, backdated permits, unpaid contractor fees. The DA's office opened a criminal investigation on Friday. Rina's face went white. You're lying. I wish I were. Sam turned his laptop around so she could see the screen. This is the official stop work order. This is the list of violations. And this is the press release from the DA's office announcing the investigation. She stared at the screen for a long moment, her hands shaking slightly. There has to be an explanation. Eli wouldn't lie to me about something this serious. Wouldn't he? I pulled out my phone and showed her a screenshot. This is his credit report, which became public record when his investors filed suit. He's got $300,000 in debt, 2 active lawsuits, and a bankruptcy filing from 2019. How did you get this? It's all public information. Anyone can access it if they know where to look. Richard Cole leaned forward in his chair. Rina, we had him investigated the moment you brought him home. Everything Miles is telling you is true. You had him investigated? Of course we did. Did you really think we'd let our daughter get involved with someone without doing our due diligence? Mrs. Cole reached over and took Rina's hand. Sweetheart, this man isn't who you think he is. But he loves me. Does he? I asked. Or does he love what he thinks you can provide? What's that supposed to mean? Sam pulled up another document on his laptop. This is a conversation Eli had with a business associate last week. It was recorded as part of the investor lawsuit. He pressed play. Eli's voice filled the room, tinny through the laptop speakers, but unmistakably clear. The Cole family has serious money, old Connecticut money. If I can get the daughter to marry me, I can probably get the father to invest in the next project. Maybe even bail me out of this current mess. What about her husband? What about him? She says he's just some boring accountant. Once we're married, she can divorce him and take half his assets, too. The recording continued for another minute, but Rina had stopped listening. She was staring at the laptop like it had just exploded in her face. He was using me, she whispered. From the beginning, I confirmed. The romantic pursuit, the engagement, the promises about your future together, it was all a con. But we have so much in common. We connect on so many levels. Rina, her father said gently, con artists are good at making people feel special. That's how they work. She started crying then, not the pretty tears she'd shed in my loft, but ugly, gut-wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. What am I going to do? She asked through her tears. I've lost everything. My marriage, my home, my friends. And for what? For a man who was just using me? You still have your family, Mrs. Cole said, and you still have your job. Actually, Sam said, checking his phone, that might be a problem too. What do you mean? I just got a text from my contact at the Hospitality Association. Word about your situation has gotten around. Something about professional ethics and moral character clauses in employment contracts. Rina looked like she was about to be sick. They're going to fire me? They're going to review your case. Apparently, having an affair while married and getting engaged to someone under criminal investigation doesn't look good for someone in hospitality management. This is insane. My personal life has nothing to do with my job performance. Tell that to your clients, I said. How many corporate events have you planned for companies that have moral character clauses in their vendor agreements? She buried her face in her hands. I've destroyed my entire life. You made choices, I corrected. This is what consequences look like. Miles, Richard Cole said quietly. I think she's learned her lesson. Has she? Because 20 minutes ago she was still defending Eli and making excuses for his behavior. What do you want from me? Rina asked, looking up at me with red, swollen eyes. I want you to understand that actions have consequences. I want you to understand that you can't lie and cheat and manipulate people without eventually paying a price. I understand. I get it. Are you happy now? I'm satisfied. What's the difference? Happy would mean I enjoyed watching you suffer. Satisfied means I think justice has been served. My phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it and smiled. Speaking of justice, I said, Eli just got arrested. What? The DA moved faster than expected. He's being charged with fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy to defraud investors. Rina stared at me in shock. How do you know that? Because Mrs. Larkin from the Fairmont just texted me. He was arrested in the hotel lobby while trying to check in with a stolen credit card. Stolen? Apparently, he's been using his investors' corporate cards for personal expenses. The FBI has been tracking the transactions. The room fell silent except for the sound of Rina's quiet crying. Outside, I could hear the normal sounds of a Sunday afternoon: kids playing, dogs barking, lawn mowers running, life going on as usual, while Rina's world collapsed around her. So what happens now? She finally asked. Now you figure out how to rebuild your life, I said. Without my help, without Eli's help, and without the safety net you've been counting on. The divorce? I'll file the paperwork this week. You can keep whatever personal belongings you had before our marriage, but everything we acquired together stays with me. That's not fair. Fair would have been you being honest with me 6 months ago. This is generous. I stood up to leave. Sam closed his laptop and followed suit. Miles, Rina called out as we reached the door. Do you hate me? I turned back to look at her one last time. She looked small and broken, sitting in her parents' formal living room surrounded by portraits of ancestors who would have been ashamed of her choices. No, I said. I don't hate you. I just don't care about you anymore. There's a difference. As Sam and I drove away from the Cole estate, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. Not happiness, not satisfaction, but simple, quiet peace. So what now? Sam asked. Now I go home, open a bottle of wine, and start planning the rest of my life. Without looking back? Without looking back. 6 months later, I got a call from Mrs. Larkin at the Fairmont. Rina had applied for a job as a night desk clerk, the kind of entry-level position she would have considered beneath her a year earlier. Should I hire her? Mrs. Larkin asked. That's up to you. But if you do, make sure she understands that she's starting over from the bottom. And you're okay with that? Mrs. Larkin, what Rina does with her life is no longer my concern. She made her choices, and now she has to live with them. You're a better man than she deserved, Miles. Maybe, but I'm also a smarter man than she thought I was. As for Eli, he was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison for fraud and embezzlement. His investors recovered about 30 cents on the dollar, and his condo project was eventually completed by a legitimate development company. I kept the loft, got a promotion at work, and started dating a woman named Jennifer, who works as a prosecutor for the state attorney's office. She appreciates honesty, pays her own bills, and has never been engaged to anyone while married to someone else. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how I handled the situation with Rina. If I think I was too harsh, too vindictive, too unforgiving. The answer is simple. I gave her exactly what she gave me. The truth, delivered without warning and without mercy. The only difference is that I waited until I had all the facts before I acted. That's not vindictive. That's just good auditing.